911 What's your emergency trainer done? Orca has the trainer, we need help now. It was supposed to be a flawless show, an elegant dance between human and apex predator, but something went terribly wrong. What began with applause, Clara Whitmore wasn't just any trainer, she was a rising star admired for her calm presence and deep bond with the animals, but beyond the weight suit and spotlight was a daughter. That morning she texted her mom, shows it. In under 7 minutes everything unraveled. Ragnar, the Orca she had trained for years, snapped and thrilled, watched. This isn't just a story of tragedy. It's about trust, captivity and armament that shattered illusions. Before we'll dive in, take a second. What would it mean to lose someone you love? Clara Whit didn't just fall in love with ocean, she belonged to it while other children played with dolls or trade baseball cards. Clara sat by the shore sketching whales from memory, mimicking their songs with haunting accuracy. By the age of 10 she could identify dozens of species by call alone. Her parents were fan at 16 while her friends went to prom. Clara volunteered at a local aquarium, cleaning tanks, logging feeding schedules, asking questions that stunned even the staff scientists. She didn't want to perform. One of her mates graduated with honors in marine biology B24, specializing in citation behavior, but it wasn't the degree that set her apart. It was the way she moved out on Dorcas. Not with fear, but with reverence. Other trainers used tools Clara used eye contact to them. She wasn't just a trainer, she was family. When Ocean World recruited her, it felt like a dream. She rose quickly, becoming Gawny of the park's most trusted handlers. Guests remembered her by name. Children clapped when she waved, but behind their glass and grandeur, Clara fought for something more. She advocated for enrichment, rest days, deeper pool stilled. System was larger than her. Compassion. That morning as she zipped up a weight suit, she sent a short message to her mother, wish me luck. Ragnar's in a mood today, I'll call after the show. Her Martha texted back a heart. She never heard from her daughter again. Clara believed in trust even when it meant risk. That belief, so beautiful and fragile, would be the very thing that led her into the water. Ocean World stood like a shimmering monument to mankind fascination with the sea. Spanning over 60 acres of tanks, tunnels and amphitheaters, it welcomed millions each year to the public. It was magic. Smiling trainers, soaring whales, perfect Clara journey. A life devoted to the ocean, choreography beneath sparkling lights. But Clara knew better. Behind the glass walls were shadows, shaped like silence, like pacing whales with worn teeth and scarred flanks, animals built for open oceans, artificial lagoons, creatures born to roam. A 100 miles a day reduced to swimming and sloped. The Orca Spectacular was the crown jewel, an emotional high-energy show designed to dazzle. Trainers rode on dorsal fins, kissed killer whales in the nose, children gasped, parents applauded, but backstage trainers whispered about fatigue, about frustration, about orcas that stop a dress band. Clara never made a scene, that wasn't her style. But she filed Quiaport, suggested changes, asked for Ragnar to be rotated out for rest. Thosser requests were marked received. She saw it building the unnatural routines, theft, obedience, the dullness behind Ragnar's once bright eyes. But the show had to go on. The crowds demanded wonder, the management demanded consistency, and Clara, even with her soft warnings, still stayed, because the whales were still there, because someone had to care from inside, because part of her still believed, foolishly or bravely. But Ocean World wasn't built on quiet. It was built in illusion, and illusions once cracked and break slowly, they collapse on third day. She died. The seats were full, third ink was polished, the music was tuned, the machine she had tried so long. Ocean World's orcas won. Namichode louder than the rest. Ragnar at 11,000 pounds and nearly 23 feet long. He was both breathtaking and imposing. Captured off the coast of Iceland as a calf, Ragnar had spent over 2 decades in captivity. Tourists knew him as the star of the show, the one who leaped highest, splashed hardest, and posed perfectly for photos. Ragnar was brilliant. Trainers marveled at his memory, his adaptability, his ability to mimic not only cues but patterns in human behavior. He didn't just react hecantly, bore the scars of dominance, fights with other males, thick ridges along his sides, bite marks from long forgotten tolt. Over the years he had shown signs of agitation, jaw-popping, logging, ignoring commands. None of these incidents caused injury, but they were documented quietly internally. Clara was of the few who never underestimated him. She saw the shifts in his mood, the way his swim patterns slowed, the heaviness in his eyes. In the weeks before the attack, Ragnar began floating at the surface for long stretches, and responsive, he started slapping his tail harder. Refused to outsiders. These were small quirks to Clara, they were red flags. She voiced said concerns again, they were noted again. Nothing changed. There was something ancient behind Ragnar's gaze, something wild that no tank could tame. He had spent over 20 years adapting tone, artificial world. On the morning of the breaking point, inside Ocean World and Ragnar's decline, February 17th, Ragnar circled the tank in silence. Trainer said he looked calm, but Clara knew better. It was the kind after she'd learned to fear. The morning of February 17th began like any other. The air was crisp. The sun reflected off the glass of the performance tank, and Ragnar moved slowly through the water like a shadow under ice. To most trainers it looked rude. To Clara, he didn't surface as often. His dorsal fin cut through the water with less energy, drifting more than swimming. When she tapped on the observation glass before the show, Ragnar didn't respond right away. Clara noted his sluggishness during pre-show. Check C quietly flagged it with Theo's assistant trainer. No alarm, just concern. Ragnar had his moods, but something about this one felt. Backstage while reviewing, Clara received a text from her mother. "Be safe today, sweetie. Let me know how it goes." Clara smiled and typed back, "Always talk after the show." At 11:46 a.m., she stepped onto the platform, wetsuit zipped hair tied back, headset in place. Ragnar breached the water on co-soaking the front row in a glorious arc. The crowd cheered, but beneath the surface Ragnar hesitated. He delayed his platform slide. His tail slaps wary sharper, deeper twice. He swam wide instead of turning subtle. Butron. Clara saw it. She slowed her movements, adjusted her posture, calming, grounding as she'd done so many times before. To the crowd it was seamless, tough trainers watching. From the edge attention and in that stillness beneath thousands of eyes, beneath rehearsed and practiced trust, Clara stepped into the water with a creature where silence had become a language of its own. She trusted him. She always had. At 11:58 a.m. the show reached one of its signature moments, a close contact routine built on absolute interest. Clara stood on the submerged platform, waist deep in water, facing Ragnar. Hidden, she extended her right arm, signaling for a sight, but Ragnar didn't. Instead, he dipped below the surface slowly, silently, then rose again just inches off cue. Just outside range, she adjusted her body, reset the signal, steady hand, relaxed breath. It was instinct now and then. In AM, the impact was immediate, violent. His clamped around her arm and pulled her under with stunning force. Gasps erupted from the stands, some still thinking it was part of the show, but their staff knew the hesitation was what followed was 7 minutes of chaos. And horror trainers scrambled to deploy distractors, underwater tonner generators meant to disorient the whale, emergency protocols were triggered, nets were tossed. He dove deep with Clara Nain, his grasp twisting, turning. At times, surfaced her body briefly visible bare, vanishing again into the blue. The water froth with pee. No one could enter the tank, not yet. Protocol dictated they wait until Ragnar released her or went still. By the time he did, it was too late. At 12:08 p.m. staff recovered her from the water. CPR began. Poolside spectators were ushered out. Many stood Nadinto, silent. In less than 10 minutes, the illusion of control had crumbled. Of trust had dissolved in silence and foam, and Ragnar, once her partner, her friend, floated nearby. In the hours that followed, Ocean World went into silent lockdown. The amphitheater was cordoned off, shows were cancelled, and Ragnar, now center of a national tragedy, was moved to an isolated medical tank out offsite but far from forgotten to the public. He became a monster headline, and a screened killer whale kills trainer. Blood in the water. Clara mauled by trusted Orca. Photos of him breaching the attack. 7 minutes of heroic performance. Ragnar didn't snap out of rage. He didn't kill to kill. Trainer Shu had been there, said he looked blank, detached, not frenzied, not angry. Veterinarians began immediate behavioral evaluations. Ragnar floated listlessly in his tank, avoiding eye contact, refusing to eat. Staff reported he vocalized less, and when he did, the calls were low, mournful. He wasn't aggressive now, he was silent. Investigators pulled years of fentanyl reports, Ragnar's history of minor incidents, his long hours, his lack of social interaction, his increasing zings of agitation. Some believed it was instinct, that no matter how well trained, killer whale is still a predator. Welders called it rebellion, a psychological break caused by years of forced routines in a world shrunk to concrete walls. And in the middle of it all was Ragnar, not Avalon, not a victim, but a mirror, a reflection of what happens when something vast, wild, and ancient is caged for too long. In death, Clara became amity, and within days, Ragnar's name was everywhere, not just in news headlines but on protest signs, petitions, hashtags. He became more than an animal, he became a symbol. To some he was a killer, to others a prisoner who finally broke outside Ocean World's gates. Crowds gathered, candles lit for Clara, burned Bayside posters reading "Free Ragnar," and shut it down online. The debate in vicious: was Ragnar a threat, Thatchold have been retired, or a victim hooked out of trauma, not choice? His facience sold on merchandise and billboards was now photoshopped behind prison bars. Every frame of the attack video was dissected, every ignored warning. Gressfest former trainers stepped forward, some condemned the park, others defended Ragnar, saying he'd shown signs of psychological strain. For meanwhile, Ragnar remained isolated. Cameras track edit movements. Journalists speculate about his fate. Would he be euthanized, moved, released? But none of those options felt like answers, because deep down, everyone knew what happened to Clara wasn't just about one Orca, it was about the entire illusion. For years Ragnar had performed on cue, but beneath every perfect breach was a min-conditioned, not content, and when that mind broke, so did the facade. Clara had trusted Ragnar because she saw him not as a showpiece but as a soul, and maybe that day he looked back and showed her his truth of what he had become, not a partner. In the weeks after Clara's death, surface of the tank at Ocean World lay still, but the world around it was in motion. Public outrage gave way to pressure. Lawmakers reopened dormant investigations, expanded. Media outlets stopped calling Ragnar a killer whale and started asking harder questions. What did we miss, and why do you see in world battered by protests and falling attendance made a rare move? They suspended all in-water performances. With Orca's new safety protocols were drafted, trainers were restricted to dry stage contact only. But the change came too late for Clara, and it did little to quiet the storm. Ragnar remained in after questions and like a sick routine. His decided behaviorists monitored him daily. Some said he was calmer now. Others said he was simply numb. In one report, a vet wrote, "He circles and perhaps he was Ragnar was no longer just a whale in a tank. He was a living consequence, a reminder that Benethivri choreographed routine was a wild animal navigating a world that never belonged to him." He became both evidence and warning, not evil, not innocent. Just impossible to ignore. Clara's family still deep in grief refused to let her death fade into a headline. 6 months later they founded the Clara Whitmore Foundation, dedicated to marine mammal safety. Ariette Akandol at vigil beside the tank trainers stood in silence. Some creators stared into the water, where Ragnar drifted just beneath the surfaces, massive form gliding in slow uncertain arcs. He didn't rise, he didn't rage, he simply lingered as if listening. And in that stillness there was no applause, no Clara Whitmore's story did not end the moment Ragnar let go. It reverberated through headlines, protest policy shifts, and quiet moments of reckoning across the world. Her death peeled back the curtain on an industry built on illusion, exposing a fragile interest that was never meant to bear through of captivity. Ragnar did not speak, he didn't heed too. His silence was louder than any splash. In him we saw the reflection of our own choices, our desire to control the wild, to mold it into entertainmento, matter, thecost. But from the silence something stirred. Conversations began, laws shifted, and maybe for the first time people started to ask the right questions, not just about safety, but about morality, about sense, about respect. Clara believed in the bond between human and animal. She gave her life to it, and though that bond was broken, it sparked something bigger than applause. It sparked change. So if history moved you, don't let it fade. Speak further. Voiceless question the spectacle.